What's up, queens? Welcome to the Female Dating Strategy Podcast, the meanest female-only podcast on the internet. I'm Ro.
I'm Savannah.
And I'm Lilith.
All right, so today I wanted to do a follow-up to our previous episode that we did about the article in Atlantic detailing the secret lives of femcels. It seems like we're harping on this subject somewhat, but I think it's important to talk about the struggles that women face that are sometimes a little bit invisible. I know we mostly talked about that article in the context of like who they are, what they believe, etc. But I think that it would be great to actually have some strategies for women who identify as femcels. It's debatable whether they actually are femcels, but for women who identify as femcels or women who feel like they have difficulties dating because they're not physically attractive, like what can you do and why it doesn't matter? And then what are the alternatives? And I think this is a good discussion because I think it'll give practical strategies for women who otherwise feel marginalized from the dating scene and to go ahead and find some kind of tools to move forward if they are really seeking out a relationship.
Cool. Sounds good.
And I'm going to be somewhat skeptical. I am going to be a little skeptical this episode just because I don't know if femcels even like want to date. And if they do, like, I don't know if like the strategies and advice that we would give, I don't know if they would actually want to do those things, but we're going to try.
Well, I'm making the assumption that they do want to improve because so many of them are focused on like lookism and then trying to looks max.
Yeah.
Right. And trying to make themselves more attractive. But as we've discussed in previous episodes, like most of it is actually psychological. Some of it may actually be physical things that they can change, but most of the time it's actually an attitude issue or just, you know, the circumstances of where they're born and maybe them not having like a good and healthy environment for them to be.
And I just want to say that just because you're not conventionally attractive, that doesn't mean that you're not attractive. I think people conflate the two. If you don't fit a narrow, or if you don't like fit the beauty standard, then you're completely written off. And that's just not the case. And it's not how men work as well, because you see men partnered up with women. I hate using scales, but if you want to use scales, we're just going to run with it just for ease. But you see men partnered up with women from 1 to 10 on the scale, so to speak, on the look scale. Like you see it all the time.
And I want to preface the rest of this episode by saying this is going to be real advice, not necessarily nice advice, like advice people want to hear. And I think that's definitely a 180 pivot away from the traditional advice, which is what the femcels were complaining about in the Atlantic article, is that the idea that everyone is beautiful and like so much of body positivity feminism focused on making women feel, quote, beautiful, women who don't internally feel beautiful, and then not acknowledging that some women actually really do struggle and no amount of like girl bossing and power positivity and like toxic positivity is going to change that. So I kind of want to acknowledge the fact, okay, if you're a woman and you're starting to feel like, okay, I'm really getting locked out of the dating scene and being taken seriously as a romantic partner, what's wrong with me? Here's some things that might be wrong and there might be nothing wrong, right?
Yeah. I think we should do an episode on the body positivity movement because I have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, that's a controversial one.
That may be bonus content or a main. It's not controversial to me. I think it's bollocks, but I will we'll go into that.
No, the stuff that I want to say about body positivity is controversial.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, fair. As always, Lilith. Yeah. We'll do an episode on that's coming.
I offend everyone on all sides.
So I want to start off by splitting the femcels or the self-identified femcels into two groups, which are fake femcels, women who aren't really femcels, who are average or even above average looking, but have some kind of issue, versus the women who like will legitimately have struggles because they have some kind of serious deformity, etc. Because those are actually two different groups. And like we discussed in the last episode we talked about with femcels.
People are using the word femcel to mean anything nowadays. Like they'll be like, oh,
Exactly.
I'm a femcel because I have a messy room, or I'm a femcel because I listen to like Marina or Melanie Martinez or some shit like that, you know? Like that's fake femcel shit. Or that's femcel culture, or like femcel memes, or like memeified femcel culture, but they're not real femcels, in my opinion anyways.
Right. Or like we even said, a lot of them would post their selfies and they would look fine, if not great. And so it seems like it was majority of them had some kind of alternative issue.
Body dysmorphia?
Yeah, body dysmorphia or just alternative-ish social issue that wasn't actually their looks, that was perhaps causing them to be singled out, to be bullied, and or, you know, just feeling less than their best. So just like incels, when you look at the femcel demographic, it's mostly young women. So you're talking about women who are in their teens and early 20s who are going through for the most part, some kind of awkward phase, are just not yet like secure in their body because they're still growing, etc. And a lot of them are bullied. So a lot of the women who are self-identified femcels, like the Atlantic article discusses, they were singled out among their peers to say like, oh, this person's ugly or this person's undesirable in our social group. So we wanted to talk about like why sometimes women like that end up femcels and like what could be realistically done, especially if you're a teenager and you're in high school. And after that, if after you graduate, like what you can do to put yourself in a place where you'll be able to rebuild your self-esteem and learn to like yourself. So one of the first things that comes to mind, and I'm going to do this in like a numbered order. One of the first things that comes to mind when we talk about femcels is poor grooming. And like, just like Lilith said, it's become a meme where a lot of them, like they have dirty rooms, they don't take care of themselves, etc.
You're not ugly, you're just dirty.
Yeah, exactly. And that seems mean, but once again, this is going to be the real advice and not the nice advice. But a lot of them, when you look at them, it just seems like it's a case of like their grooming standards are below their peers, which is causing them to be singled out unfairly. They're not uglier than their peers. Their grooming standards are below their peers in some kind of material way. And sometimes it's not their fault, right? Sometimes it's just a matter of like they're poor. You know, if you're poor, you might not be ugly. You might just be poor, meaning like you can't afford like nicer clothes. You can't afford makeup, etc., or things to make yourself look nice in comparison to some of your peers. So that's one of those times where you have to just have some kind of awareness to know that like people are shitty and people are jerks and you're not actually a femcel. You're not actually ugly. You just, for whatever reason, are being singled out because your grooming standards are below that of your peers.
Yeah. And to be fair, like it gets a little complicated, I find, with like radical feminism and stuff because, you know, things like shaving your legs, you know, a lot of girls, for example, will get like bullied for having hairy legs or something like that, right? You know, the rad fem discourse, I guess, is like, don't shave your legs because it's a patriarchal expectation and, you know, you're oppressing women by shaving your legs and stuff. And honestly, if you don't want to get bullied for having hairy legs, just shave your legs or cover your legs. I know it's like harsh, but, or just like accept that you're going to get bullied. I don't know what else to say. It's like, it makes me wonder like how much of this like rad fem, like, you know, anti-beauty standard stuff is actually just like hope for women who either don't want to do those grooming things or like they feel like they're so ugly that even if they did do the grooming things, there'd be like no point. And then it's like, you know, for me to participate in grooming would be to participate in my own oppression. I'm gilding my own cage kind of thing, right? I don't know. I kind of just roll my eyes at people like that. I'm like, if you don't want to do those things, then don't. But like, you know, it probably would make your life better if you did do them. Unfortunately, that's just the reality.
Yeah. And I talked about this in the Discord, but this is a particular area of like sensitivity for me because of the fact that my parents were really, really heavily religious. So they like didn't want me to like shave and didn't want me to wear makeup, etc. Even my hairstyle was really, really controversial because I thought some hairstyles would look too adult for my age, etc. But like the reality of that is it was worth the fight I had with my parents. And then eventually me getting a job and just getting money and sneaking around and like buying all my grooming stuff myself because of the fact that like in high school, if you are significantly less groomed than your peers, you'll stand out.
Yeah.
And that can cause you to be bullied. So if it's like an issue with your parents because they're like weirdly controlling, and this happens a lot to girls especially, they're really controlling over your looks, it's worth actually fighting for. I hate to say it. Yeah.
Yeah. I really relate to that actually, because like for different reasons, like yours was for more religious reasons, but my mom was just a narcissist and she made me ugly on purpose just because she didn't want me to outshine her or whatever. So like growing up as a child, she like never bought me like, you know, we had money, like she could have put me in like nice clothes, but she chose to put me in like hand-me-downs, like sweatpants and like baggy t-shirts and stuff, anything to like hide my body. I looked like under the age of like 12, I was like so ugly, just honestly. And then I started like babysitting, getting my own money. Like for me, like grooming myself, putting in hair extensions, dressing more fashionably and stuff like that, that was an act of rebellion against my parents, right? Like from my starting point. To me, that was an act of rebellion, right? And so some of these women who harp on the beauty standard stuff, they honestly kind of remind me of my mom, like just make yourself ugly so that I feel better about myself, like kind of thing, right? So like it is unfortunate that people bully you for being less attractive. But for me, I just, you know, I would say just do the cost benefit analysis. And if you think it's going to be worth it for you, then why not?
It looks like the femcels have acknowledged some of that because they have like these looks maxing manuals. And Gen Z, you have it kind of lucky because you have just like a lot of tutorials online, right? You have the internet and there's just like a million.
My makeup when I was a teenager was so ugly.
Right? Exactly. Like we had.
I had to like read books about makeup. before the internet.
Exactly. Back in our day, we had it figured out the hard way, which was like trial and error and just like looking stupid a few days, like every time you would try some new style, versus like now where you can go online and you can see there's so many beauty gurus now. So you just have to find someone who looks kind of like you and then follow exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, find a beauty guru who has a similar appearance as you and then like get some tips and tricks, right? Don't imitate them exactly because that's also fucking weird.
Like we said in the previous Femcel episode as well, a lot of women who are considered beautiful are actually average women who just put in a lot of work in their grooming, because grooming is also like a class signifier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes it has less to do with what you look like and more to do with like the effort you put behind your looks, as well as like the kinds of designers you can afford.
And it's part of the reason why, even though we have things like Instagram and, Pinterest, and you have that representation, but it also gives people, I think, a very, very warped idea of what's attainable for most women. Because a lot of these Instagram people, they're very, very good at, showing off the clothes that they're wearing. But what you don't see is, just like Rose said, the amount of, for example, like effort and the amount of money that goes into them looking a particular way. So this is why I'd always say to women, don't feel bad if you can't essentially match up to that, because it takes a lot of effort. Even if the person is, I want to say, for example, like plus size, we often, correlate that with people that don't make any effort. But even plus size models, they have to put in a lot of effort to maintain the way they look and to look a certain way.
Yeah. So you don't have to be like the most fashion forward of all your peers, but the goal is to just not be noticeably, significantly less groomed than your peers are.
I want to say it's okay to be average. That's actually the other thing, is like too many people right now, we're striving for exceptionalism. We look at beauty on Instagram, we're trying to be like a 10 out of 10. I think that is unachievable for most people. It's okay to aim for 6.
Right.
It's okay to be average, right? Like, if you look at like a group of high school kids and stuff, like they all kind of look the same. They're all kind of average. The ones that get bullied are the ones that really, really stick out. And so, yeah, like stop striving for impossible beauty standards. Just strive for average. Okay. Like then your life will be happy enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Like for fitness, don't starve yourself trying to be a size 0 or whatever, right? Like, you're never going to be an Instagram fitness model unless you're like genetically gifted or just live that kind of lifestyle already, right?
And a lot of them have had surgery as well. They just don't tell you.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like unless you're willing, spend tens of thousands of dollars on surgery, like you're probably never going to look like an Instagram model, and that's okay. You can still live a perfectly happy life having like an average body fat percentage or having like an average body, right? You don't have to be super skinny. You can just be normal. That's okay.
Yes. So that brings me to my second point, which is a lot of women consider themselves femcels because they're significantly overweight. And this is so regional. And I've had this discussion with some other FDS members where, the emphasis on your weight and like what's an acceptable weight range so that you're not, again, significantly outside your peers really, really differs depending on like where you are in the country. Like obviously, if you're in a city or a country that's really, really fashion forward in the States, that would be like New York, LA, Miami, Vegas, places where there's like huge fashion industries or entertainment industries, hospitality industries. Then there's a ton of emphasis on women's weight as far as like being skinny, because like part of the economy there is the women there, right? Because they are part of the fashion industry or they're part of the hospitality industry, which tends to put a premium on how women look. Whereas there's other places in the country where, and we already know this, that the United States is one of the...
Like Ohio?
United States is one of the fattest countries.
Just move to Ohio. That's my other piece of advice for femcels. Move to Cleveland or something where you can just be a Cleveland 10. You might be in LA too, but you'll be a Cleveland 10.
That was going to be my legit advice, that like try to get to a healthy weight. Like realistically, for your own sake, for your longevity, try to get to a healthy weight. But if you're just like, man, I either don't want to put in the effort, I like to eat, or you have some kind of condition such that like it's really, really hard for you to get down to a healthy weight, then I actually think it might be beneficial to move to a place where like the culture is more surrounded around food.
Move to Louisiana. Get some...
Swear to God. In the South, like I think most of the quote fattest cities in America are in the South or Midwest. There's barbecue, there's Tex-Mex,
and everyone is fat there, right? So you won't stick out. You'll be average, right?
Everyone's fat. Exactly. Right.
Okay, so but what if somebody can't actually afford to move?
These places are cheaper to live, okay? LA is they actually will be saving money, okay? LA, New York, the places where it's most important to be hot is also the most expensive place to live.
I mean, I get that, but also this isn't just like, we don't just have like people in the US, it's also Europe and around the world as well. And moving, even if it's cheaper, is fucking expensive. Like, even if you're moving from one place that is, you know, more expensive to another. Like in the UK, people take out personal loans to move because, I mean, you're looking at around at least $3,000 if you want to move somewhere.
Isn't the UK also one of the most like obese countries in Europe though? So
in Europe, yeah.
So if you're English speaking, chances are you're probably from the UK, so you're probably fine. So no.
But even still, like, I mean, like, what is the advice if somebody can't move? Or if they have, for example, isn't even just about moving just, I know, to be average. It's also there could be things keeping you in that particular area as well. I'm just conscious of the advice that we just tell people to move when moving isn't that straightforward of a decision. And it may not even solve their problem.
It may not solve their problem, but honestly, as a person who's traveled a lot, like cities have cultures. And so if you are in a city where you don't fit the culture, it's honestly an uphill climb. And it's actually, I think, worth for your mental health to move to a city where you'll be around your tribe, right? If you're a person that just knows you, like you want to be a big party animal,
you want to eat a lot, go to the South, eat all that barbecue.
I'm dead ass.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds horrible, but like I said, I actually think I think that's better than doing things like plastic surgery, to be honest with you.
And be landed with their lack of abortion rights. But that's a different issue.
True. Oh, yeah. Shit.
Be stuck with their lack of abortion rights. That's it. And we basically moved from like LA, where it seems pretty liberal, to the South for man. But by the way, if you need an abortion, you're fucked.
No, not for a man. It's not for a man. It's for your quality of life. Yeah.
Or quality of life. But then what's the point if your reproductive rights are just...
I mean, if you're like eating yourself into a coma, like, are you going to be having sex? Sorry.
I mean, that's pretty far though. Like when you talk about eating yourself into a coma, you're talking about like £600 life. I'm talking about the people, I assume you're talking about the people that are maybe chubby, overweight, like not necessarily like by £600 life.
Are there blue states that have a good food culture?
Let me Google this. Fattest cities in America. Enter.
Yeah, I'm just conscious of the advice that we're giving, like just move to a red state. But if their rights are going to be worse off, then we shouldn't really be encouraging them to do that.
Maybe you move to a purple state then.
Yeah, move to a purple state. Like,
I don't know what a purple state is.
It's usually a politically diverse state.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the most obese cities are all in the South. So Callan, Texas, Memphis, Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee, Mobile, Alabama, Jackson, Mississippi.
So they're shit out of luck, basically. SOL.
Yeah, but there's some slightly purple cities in here and states in here. So like Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Yeah, like Oklahoma, I think it's reddish purple. It's like reddish purple.
Can I just say that the hottest American men I've ever met were always from Raleigh? Is that North Carolina? Like every single hot American man I've ever met was from Raleigh. So this is completely unrelated, but if you're looking for a hot country boy, move to Raleigh. Like, honestly, that's my type.
Okay, so the other option too I've noticed is that usually outside of the central hub city, so if you go outside of like New York, then you go outside of LA and some of the farther out cities and counties, they're like not exactly the suburbs, but they're a little bit farther out. Like they're a little bit more like working class. Then you'll see a lot more obese people as well. So sometimes you don't actually have to move states. You could just move a couple of cities over.
Fair, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to point out that, like, you know, when it comes to, like, I'm feeling insecure about my weight type of discourse, you know, the existing dialogue generally would be like, oh, here's how you can lose weight, you know, telling women to lose weight. Or they'll be like, you're beautiful just the way you are. And anyone who doesn't think so is, like, fat phobic or whatever. Just point out that FDS is like, our advice is completely way out of left field.
It's mean, but honest.
It's like, if you don't want to lose weight, then don't. But just move to a place where instead of you being fat, you'll be average compared to other people.
Where it's not a social liability for you.
Yeah, where it won't be as much of a social liability, yeah.
And like I said, it's not the nicest thing to say, but it's also honest. It's like, why keep like, you know, torching yourself trying to fit a beauty standard that you either can't commit to because you just don't want to, or it's a medical condition that you can't. I actually think it's important to find your tribe for your own mental health. I actually think it's actually better rather than trying to be like, I don't fit in here. Like, obviously, if you live in like Beverly Hills and, you know, you want to like wolf down barbecue ribs every weekend, like you're going to be outside of that culture, right? Because like that's like the sushi and green juice culture, and you want to eat differently. You want to live differently. So if you want to live differently, I don't even think you should feel bad about it. I think you should just go to a place that makes you feel good.
Embrace, this is the lifestyle that I want to live. Yeah. Just own that shit, right?
I feel like that's way healthier than like the fitness culture and like lying to yourself.
Yeah, it's healthier than lying to yourself, and it's healthier than expecting other people to lie to you. That's the other thing about like the forced body positivity or like obligate body positivity stuff. Like, I don't know. It's like, just embrace your body the way it is if you don't want to lose weight. I will say, like, yeah, losing weight is really hard, and a lot of people just don't want to do that. And that's fine. Like, that's okay. Like, we all have different priorities, right?
And as someone from the Midwest, you can have a great quality of life and be very, very obese.
Yeah.
In a lot of cities. So
I actually also want to say, again, in terms of like reframing like standards for what is like a healthy body and stuff, like I want to say, in my personal opinion, the ideal female body, again, my personal opinion, if you don't fit this, don't get offended. I'm not still calling you ugly. In my personal opinion, the best or a most ideal female body is between 30 to 35% body fat, which is a little on the higher spectrum, actually, like, and then as much muscle as like you can reasonably achieve without steroids. That's what I think is, in terms of health, the most beneficial to women, because first of all, having a little bit of extra body fat is good to like throw around in a fight. Like if you ever get in a physical confrontation, like it's better to have that extra weight. You know, if you weigh like 150 pounds, a guy could just like pick you up and like throw you, right? Like it's better to have that, you know, on your side. Secondly, you actually need some body fat to like regulate your hormones and stuff. Like a lot of women think they have to get like under 25% body fat if they want to be seen as attractive or if they want to be seen as healthy or whatever. And I find like, you know, the lower the body fat percentage you go, the harder it is to maintain and the harder it is to regulate your own hormones. So just for like an overall like day-to-day like quality of life, having like an average to slightly on the higher end of average spectrum of body fat percentage is acceptable. So at the beginning of your weight loss journey and you actually do want to lose weight, I'm not saying you have to lose weight, but if you are overweight and you want to lose weight, it's okay for your goal to be like 30% body fat or 35% body fat. I think that's very achievable and you can live a great quality of life with that.
Yeah, exactly. So it all comes down to how much effort you want to put into either of these areas. And the goal is always to not be so noticeably below your peers that it causes you to be socially isolated or bullied.
Yeah.
So, and if you can't move, then it's like, it's a little bit tougher, like Savannah said. So try to move a couple of cities over if you can, if you're still in high school. I think actually do your best to, like Lila said, get down to like 35% body fat, like get down to good enough, right? It doesn't have to be amazing. It just has to be good enough.
Like 35% body fat is just like an average woman. You just look at a normal non-obese woman and you're like, she's probably 30 to 35% body fat, maybe even slightly curvy. So I think that some women are genetically just like that, actually, in which case I'm a little bit jealous, you know?
Yeah, if you live in a house where, you know, it's very difficult to eat healthy because your family eats unhealthy, just like the poor grooming situation, like this is a time where it's actually worth investing in your health and trying to eat healthier, meaning like spending your own money on like healthier foods. Mm-hmm. If you can get a job, etc. We're mostly talking about high school because this is like the time when you're starting to socially transition and where these types of things kind of matter. Junior high is just sort of a crapshoot.
That's like the age that femcels are also, is like, you know, teenage and like young 20s generally. I find women over the age of 25, they're not femcels anymore. They just don't give a shit. Like,
yeah, they find their lane.
Yeah, they figure it out. But we're talking about like, women under 25 generally is the femcel demographic.
Where you're stuck in a social environment you can't necessarily control, like, or you're just learning how to leave. So like in your teens, you're obviously in high school, you may not be able to control where you live. But as you start to, when you graduate and as you start to move out in the world, this is what you can do. And this is what I've seen women do to increase their quality of life after being labeled, quote, femcels.
And if we're talking about men as well, because, you know, assuming that every femcel wants to be noticed by men, the older you get, the more you realize that a lot of men just don't care as much as women think they care about stuff like, I don't know, for example, cellulite or a back roll or something like that. They just don't care, in my experience anyway. Yeah.
So the caveat to all of this advice is that no matter how bad you think you are, there's always a man that's worse off. Quite frankly, if you have a pussy, you won.
That was not what I was expecting, but okay.
People think that femcels don't really exist to a certain extent.
Or that they're all volcels. voluntary celibates?
I wouldn't say they're volcels, but like, well, they want romantic relationships, which are hard for everybody right now. But, and we'll get into that as well. But the idea that like you can't get any guy to pay attention to you is just not true.
I'd probably say for about like maybe 90% of women, perhaps that's not true.
I don't know. I feel like this episode's going to be like tone deaf as hell because I actually don't know what it's like to be ugly. Like, I just can't relate. I'm sorry.
I've never experienced that. It's just,
I've never experienced that.
I mean, I thought I was ugly growing up because my sisters were, I had two sisters and like one was a model. And then I thought I was, but I think I'm just, I don't know. I'm not ugly. Like now I know that I'm not, but I don't know. I sort of remember sort of the mindset because I think we're going to come on to it in a bit actually, or we might just skip ahead. Because I went to like a high school where I was like the only black person in like the whole school. Maybe there was like one or two. And like naturally I stood out like a sore thumb as well, especially when I was surrounded by white girls who were tall, they were very skinny, and I just wasn't that at all. So I get it, you know, when you stick out like a sore thumb and then you're comparing yourself constantly. But even then, I wouldn't say I was ugly because I was in a relationship at the time and I still had men wanting to date me. I was in a relationship. So yeah, maybe I can't relate either.
There's lots of average men, right? So like even when we talk about this, it's like your life isn't over if you're not like top tier attractive.
And average doesn't necessarily mean unattractive as well. Like I feel like there is this dichotomy between ugly and not ugly, and it's not true. Like there are average, you know, looking men who I found really, really attractive, like personally attractive. Because it's not just about the way they look, it's about the way they speak, the way they carry themselves, their thought process. Like looks, I just feel like with femcels, like just focusing on the exterior is just missing so much of what makes a person actually attractive. And it's not just the way they look in most cases.
I mean, I think it's fair. In the case of femcels, I think it's more fair because like for women, our attraction is more holistic. It's like, yeah, it is important for the men to be facially gifted and to have like a nice body. And like, you know, we also care about personality and his like general vibe, right? I think men, again, like they're much more simple-minded. And so they tend to just think of it like hot or not. For men, it's men's attraction, I feel, works much more. It's like a light switch, you know, whereas with women, it's like more of a spectrum and more complicated.
But in terms of like a long-lasting relationship, though, of all the couples that I know, it's not just looks that brought them together. If you're looking for a shag, then yeah, I think it's light switch. But in terms of long-lasting relationships, I mean, obviously they want to find, I think a high-value man, he'll want to find his woman attractive. But that's not the only thing that will keep him there at all.
I mean, it's not the only thing that'll keep him there, but it is one of the requirements. Like, so generally.
It's important, but this is what I'm saying. It's holistic, just like, you know, women's are. If we're looking for the long term with a high value man, he'll also see you as a fully holistic human being and not just a shell. If a guy is only like with you for your looks, he's low value because he doesn't see you as a fully realized human being.
Yes. Okay. So number 3 reason why you might be a femcel, poverty. So there's an old adage that there's no ugly women, just poor.
This is true.
You're not ugly, you're just poor. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not ugly, you're just poor.
Like so many videos on this, but yeah.
There's just an unfortunate side effect of any type of capitalist society. There are people who cannot afford to groom themselves or take care of themselves in the same way that other people can, which again causes you to stick out. So I think we've already made this suggestion in the previous points to, if you can get a part-time job, it is worth at this stage using your money to, again, the rad bums aren't going to love us, but it is worth using money to invest in your physical appearance, both internally because of your health as well as like externally as well as your grooming. But, you know, if you're in a situation where, as a person who grew up poor, who's had to figure out a way to like be somewhat stylish, like by thrifting clothes or getting clothes from the Salvation Army, like you also have to be somewhat resourceful. Even if you can't afford like the best things, there's lots of fast fashion and there's lots of places where you can get like clothing that you can kind of like self-style, right? Like you can still make yourself look presentable.
Or just shoplift, honestly.
The result to criminality.
Petty theft.
Honestly. Oh my God. Okay. I'm not gonna go. Okay. Never mind. I'm not gonna go down that path, but like, I will say that like, we live in a capitalist society.
Were you the klepto friend?
What?
So were you the klepto friend in high school?
Maybe. Okay.
We all had one klepto friend.
I did go through a phase, actually, like a compulsive stealing phase, like a...
tea leaf alert, tea leaf.
I did go through a compulsive stealing phase.
Yeah, Lilith was a tea leaf. Tea leaf.
Okay, so there's this thing. It's like the stupidest thing. Okay, so there's this thing for like bored white women where it's like we don't. It's like we don't even like. How do I say this? It's like we're not even like poor or anything. You just steal for fun. But I actually think that that is less okay than people who steal like because they can't afford it, right? So I'm saying like the stealing that I did, I feel was not like ethical. But if you're poor and you live in a capitalist society and you can shoplift and not get caught, I support that. I think it's like them putting you in prison for stealing after you shoplift that's wrong.
Eat the rich.
Yeah.
Eat the rich.
Like, do it as a form of protest against our shitty capitalist society. Protest stealing.
I mean, I would say though, if you are a woman, if there is like one piece of advice, I'd say it's non-negotiable in terms of improving the way that you look, is get a proper fitting bra. Like 90% of women are in the wrong bra size, and it will honestly transform the way that you look.
It makes your posture bad too.
It makes it bad, and also your clothes won't fit the way they should if your bra is shit. So I would honestly recommend getting professionally measured and doing it that way. Don't buy bras in shops off the rack because they often don't fit the way they should, and they're very, very generic sizing. Even if you buy 2 or 3 that fit really, really well, you can make them last a long time. And that will be my biggest, especially if you are busty, it's like non-negotiable that you have a bra that fits you well. Because even in high school, I remember when the boys would always notice if a girl's bra didn't fit properly because she'd have like the quadra boot and it'll be like visibly too small. So yeah, definitely invest in a good quality bra and bras.
A good point that was brought up by one of our Discord members is that putting in this effort when you're young is actually worth it. Because actually, as you get older, as you start to go out into the world and you start to get jobs, etc., certain levels of grooming start to be expected as the norm. And so sometimes for kids that didn't have the money or didn't put in the effort into their grooming and their health standards when they were young, it gets harder unless you obviously come into more money when you're older. It does make you a little bit behind like your peers. So it's important, I think, to think of investing in your grooming and your looks as part of your general self-care, part of your general mental and physical health maintenance, and that it's actually a skill that you can learn and that a skill you should try, and you should try out in high school, because a lot of times that's, regardless of the fact that people get made fun of, like that's sometimes the best place to make all your mistakes, right? Than trying to make them when you go out to the working world.
Yeah, go through all your weird phases when you're high school. Then again, kids these days, they film everything. So even their shitty fashion choices are going to be documented forever. So I kind of feel bad for kids. Like anything that's on the internet now, all the mistakes they made as a teenager are on the internet for life. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But yeah, it is true that when you're in high school, it's the best time to make mistakes.
Or college. Okay, so the next couple of points are more social issues that we're going to talk about that may make you a femcel. So like Savannah touched on a little bit earlier, if you are a racial minority in an area that's like predominantly white,
or even just in general, like let's be real.
Yeah, in general, but like especially that. So for myself, we moved around quite a bit when I was young. So I've lived in a lot of different neighborhoods with like different racial components, and going from like a place that's either a lot of people of your same race or at least racially diverse to a place where like you are the minority, where you're like the lonely only, can be kind of a mind fuck. It can be. So there's a lot of women who, especially on the femcel boards, they really obsess about like beauty standards as it pertains to race in particular, and saying like, oh, I'm never going to be attractive because I'm not a blonde white woman. And there's even a pretty funny comment by a comedian, a pretty infamous Twitter comedian. I think it's Dana Donnelly, if I'm not mistaken. But she said, like, when did you discover you weren't ugly? You're just not white. That for a lot of women.
University for me.
So for a lot of women, like if you're in a country where you are the minority and you're not, like, that's another situation where you stand out, right? Like you are somewhere that's outside, so far outside of the norm that it's noticeable, which may cause you to be bullied or at least make you feel really, really insecure. This is why I'm kind of I'm on the boat that representation actually really matters. And I think Gen Z's very lucky because of the internet now that like you can go online and see other people who look like you and create a beauty standard that's realistic for yourself. So you're not so like reliant on the beauty standards of the people in your immediate vicinity. Because if you try to look like someone you're not, like you're just going to end up frustrating yourself and like feeling like, well, I don't look like this type of person. I don't look like this. I'm a racial minority and I can't live up to this standard. And therefore I'm ugly, which is going to make you feel bad.
And that's exactly what I did. Like when I started going to uni and I started having my own money, I just followed a bunch of content creators that looked similar to me. And I just looked at the way they dressed, what worked for them, what didn't work for them as well. And just essentially curated like my own style based off women who looked like me and had a similar body shape as well. And also that's a life hack as well. So when you're shopping online, if you clothes shop online, try and look for models who basically look similar to you because those are the clothes that will fit you best. If it's being, for example, modeled by a tall, skinny white woman and you're not that, it's going to look different. And that's where you see those TikToks or those, stories about women being disappointed about the dress that they ordered from China that looks totally different when they wear it. It's also, I find it also saves a lot of time and I end up sending a lot fewer items back is if I just like look at the model and think, do they look like me? It also requires a bit of honesty as well, because if you are looking at the curvy hourglass plus size model and you're not that as well, it also requires a bit of, I guess, internal honesty and also knowing that, okay, yeah, she's got a really banging figure, but it's just not my figure. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's trial and error too. And you'll have to cycle through a couple of clothing phases, I think, to start to figure out what actually fits your body. I'm very much the return queen. If I don't love it, I take it right back. So I generally will go online.
Didn't you get banned from Nordstrom Rack because of that?
We're not going to talk about that, Lilith. But yes. I feel like it was their fault.
That's not the return queen. That's more like the return convict, but never mind.
For the record, so there's an online retailer that I like. So if you ever shopped at Nordstrom Rack, the store, everything's all over the place. So I always used to prefer to purchase things online. And I just decided to completely redo my wardrobe. But the problem is like, at least like originally, when you would order things, like we said, it would not look the same when I tried it on, like as it would look on the picture, right? So when you get something in person and trying it on, it just doesn't fit right. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to sit here and just have this thing in my closet I'm never going to wear because it doesn't look right. So I would sometimes just buy things in multiple sizes or multiple colors and then try them all on at home and then return them back to the store. But I did this so much that eventually they blocked my account. So I think it was a lot of money. So, because I was redoing my wardrobe.
Like tens of thousands of dollars worth of returns?
It was honestly tens of thousands of dollars worth of returns. But like part of that was like, it's different from other retailers like Macy's, because like Macy's, you could buy stuff and then ship it to the store and then try it on in the store. Like with Nordstrom Rack, I was like, I hate going to the store. So I'm just going to order everything online, which means I was just like, I'll just order everything in every size or every color and then like return part of it. But it means like I would order 4 things and then return like 3 of them. I think you got to keep your returns under like 75% within a certain amount of time. But yeah, I don't know. All I did was create a new email account and keep shopping.
Yeah. See, we're both rebels like that, bro. No, just kidding.
We're both right. Yeah. I just created an email account.
Clothing rebels.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes it's worth doing. So trial and error, like don't keep anything in your closet you don't want. Try different things on, if that fits your body type. Look at the colors and the color scheme and see if they flatter your body type. And there's so many resources online about beauty at this point. That's why we don't really focus on it. But like, I think the point was like, if you're a racial minority, to deliberately seek out brands, influencers, etc., that look like you, that have more realistic standards so that you're not beholden to whatever the standards are in your local area, which again, lucky for you, Gen Z, because in millennials, we didn't really have representation like that. So you were kind of left on your own to figure it out, which I think really did a number on a lot of women's self-esteem from and like you'll see this kind of stuff where there's a lot of women who feel like, oh, I was bullied because I was too hairy, or I was bullied, because I had dark hair, dark skin, and they didn't see anybody like themselves. And so they didn't learn how to value themselves because everyone around them was different. And that's like, I think the benefit of of being the digital age is that like your scene is now global, for better or for worse. So you don't have to feel like, okay, because I don't like fit in here, so to speak, that I'm necessarily ugly or that I can't have a social life, etc. It's just a matter of like finding what works for you and makes you feel good and looks good on you. All right. So the next reason you might be a femcel, poor social skills.
This also goes for incels as well, I find as well.
I think all of these goes for incels, to be fair.
Femcels and incels, yeah.
No, because men aren't held to the same beauty standards, so I think it's different.
True. Okay, true. Yeah, like a fraction of this is true for incels.
Just wash your ass. That's the only advice.
Yeah, just wash your fucking ass, you losers.
Get outside the basement.
Exactly. And I used to lurk incel selfie, and like incel selfie, most of them, like I said, it was all about the grooming for them. Most of them were just like young guys who either hadn't completely grown into their bodies yet or just like terrible at grooming. And like men's grooming is bare minimum. It's literally like shave your unibrow, keep a beard line up, and cut your hair. That's it. That's it. And they can't even do that. And then they want to cry about being being incels.
Anywho, back to the poor social skills. Poor social skills for women.
I want to say, first of all, the way that you learn good social skills is you're going to have a lot of moments where you exhibit bad social skills in the process. And so I feel like a lot of women, first of all, like social skills are learned. They're not something you're born with. You need to practice it. And it is very much use it or lose it. I feel like a lot of women, they'll have a socially awkward interaction or, have a moment of feeling socially uncomfortable and then like get traumatized by that and like get so much social anxiety that they just find it really, really hard to compel themselves to go and get more practice socially. And that just makes it much worse, right? It just makes your social skills much worse. And it's going to just add and compound to the trauma over time because you're going to have to interact with socially. Humans are social creatures. We live in a society. You're going to have to socially interact with people, right? So I think it's better to just like get the practice with, over with as much as you can. In high school, like honestly, most of these people you're never going to talk to anyways, right? So it's okay if you burn a few bridges. Like it's okay, right?
Exactly. You have to have the mentality throughout high school that like, fuck all these loser ass people. Like, honestly, it's the best way to survive that situation because you're stuck there. You can't do anything about it. A lot of people are shitty. You should not internalize anything that happened in high school ever.
And honestly, like that literally the day you graduate is going to be the last time you see 99.99% of them anyway.
Yeah. So I don't know, just go out there, socially interact with people. If you have I have a lot of like socially awkward moments in high school that, I cringe about years later. And probably the people there don't remember me or don't remember that moment at all. But I don't let that stop me. I still go out there. I still talk to people and like, I don't know how to say this. Like practice makes perfect. Just fucking do it, even if it's hard. That's all I have to say.
I mean, to be fair, speaking as an introvert, it can be a cycle of almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you have a bad interaction, that will actually make you want to retreat. It's not always just a case of just, pick yourself up and try again. But what I would say as an introvert and what helped me is just to find your tribe of people. It doesn't have to be a huge crowd of people because I remember when I went to like, what do you call the education period when you're like 16 to 18 in the US or Canada? What do you call that? Is that still high school?
Yeah, still high school. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so basically in my high school, I went to a different school and all the cliques had been formed. I was the only black person, but I managed to find a group of other misfits, so to speak. That's what we called ourselves because we all joined in like the 12th grade and we just stuck together throughout the whole time. And so you can just find your circle and everybody can find a circle, I think. And it doesn't have to be huge as well, but that can really, really help take some of the edge off. Even if it's just one or two people, if you just stick together, it will make high school so much easier.
Yeah, and I think you have to figure out if you are being socially ostracized because you're just into things that are not as popular among the people you're around, or if you have like legit poor social skills, meaning like the things you say offend people, you're awkward in conversation, you never have anything interesting to say. Like those things are more skills to work on versus like your social skills are okay, but like you just are into something niche, right? Whatever. Like what if you're into like some kind of niche anime? And I see a lot of like the anime kids feeling persecuted online, even though like anime is huge now. But I remember like when I'm back in my day, but like a lot of the kids that were into like these niche interests, so to speak, like they weren't weird, so to speak, but they just weren't like, there's a lot of people that are just not into it. And so then they were more isolated because they had unique interests, in which case it is so worth finding your tribe. Just find the people who are interested in the things that you're interested in. You don't have to feel bad because you're not like the crowd, right? If you just have like interests that differ from other people. And I think that's different than like poor social skills, meaning like you're a drag to be around.
I almost want to be the devil's advocate to this section just because, like, yes, it is important to find your tribe, but I think you also need to look at your tribe and ask yourself, like, is this the tribe that I want to be socialized by? Because too often I meet, like, yeah, if you're a weird kid and you hang out with all the other weird kids, and I know in past episodes I've said, like, even if you're a misfit, hang out with other misfits, like, you know, you're stronger together. And that is true. I would caution you being overly reliant on the misfit crowd because they're going to make you more socially incompetent.
If you're like in one of those groups where there's like in-group lingo that only that group understands, you still need to be able to communicate with normies.
Yeah, I would say find your tribe, but also, yeah, learn how to communicate with normal people. Like,
I mean, like when I say misfit, I don't mean people. I think you're talking about something that's quite extreme. I'm not saying people.
I'm talking about like the blue-haired, like I'm Libra-sexual, like, you know, and all the weird queer kids on TikTok who reinforce each other's weirdness, and then they go out into society and realize that society is not like this, and they're traumatized by the fact the real world isn't like their, you know, socially weird in-group.
And here's another thing that you don't really understand in high school is that you don't actually have to be that different before you're marked as different. So, for example, in terms of the group I eventually formed, a lot of them were tall, pretty thin, you know, white girls, but they also didn't fit in with the main in crowd as well. So even if you don't fit in with the main crowd, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a misfit or that you're socially awkward. It could just be that you just don't fit in. And I suppose this is a longer episode as well, but I sort of almost feel like this like drive towards inclusivity is almost a backward step because people naturally form groups as humans, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But we get pushed in this whole everyone has to accept everybody. You have to be everybody's friend. Like in, for example, sports days in the UK, everybody gets a medal, even if you come like, you know, 301 place, like, for example. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. It's perfectly okay to not fit in with the main group. That it's not necessarily an indictment on you as a person, but it's just sometimes them's the breaks, basically, and it's fine.
I mean, it's not a problem. Like for myself, I didn't realize this until later when I started recounting like all of my closest friendships, but so many of my closest friends had immigrant parents. I had an extremely racially diverse group of friends, but the thing that actually was a common thread is that all of us were first gen.
Mm-hmm.
So at least like we had an immigrant parent. And so like, I almost feel like we gravitated towards each other because we had certain mindsets at looking at things, even though we came, like our parents came from vastly different countries. So even something like that, where like, okay, you're a white person, but you're an immigrant, right?
Or your parents are an immigrant, and that's enough to sometimes get you, or even if you grew up in a different part of the country or you went to a different sort of school, like that, you know, that can be enough to take you outside of the in-group. Again, that's nothing to do with you as a person. It's just how it is sometimes.
Yeah. So be mindful that just because you don't fit in with like what's popular there, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you, and to really try to figure out if it's like your social skills are lacking or you just haven't found your tribe. The last portion of this is if you have religious or overbearing parents, slowly raise his hand in the background. So a lot of parents cripple their kids because they don't allow their kids to do fucking anything, right? And so I feel like a lot of my other first gen friends, they were similarly raised where they had parents from somewhere else. And like, I don't know if it's just like fear or whatever, you know, some of their parents didn't speak English. My mom speaks English and everything, but like some of their parents didn't speak English. So their parents are really, really reliant on them. So then like they were really crippled socially because so much of their social interaction had to revolve around their family, or like their parents were like paranoid of like letting them have any freedom. So you see a lot of this happen where it's like, you know, the kids that are really, really restricted in high school and then they go crazy in college because they have no idea of their limits and like they're just trying to rebel against really overly strict guidelines. I think it's worth like asserting your freedom from your parents at this age. Now, don't get yourself kicked out the house, I guess. I mean, weigh your options. But for me, and like for my younger siblings, like there's so many fights that I had with my mom and my father that my younger siblings didn't have to have because like, and their lives were a lot socially easier, that sometimes it's just worth actually pushing back on. So I think if you're the point where their parents are like, you have to come home straight after school and you can't go anywhere and you can't hang out with your friends anywhere, that will socially cripple you. Like social learning is actually a big part of learning as well. So I do think it's, granted, everybody's inside on on their like phone now anyway. So maybe this is like starting to get passe because now you can just talk to your friends like on your smartphone versus like back in my day.
People don't go to parties these days, bro. Like, they don't go to physical parties. Like, I remember when I was a teenager, like, sneaking out the back to go to parties or go to, like, and most of them wouldn't even be good parties. They'd be, like, bush parties, just out, like, drinking, like, fucking Bud Light out in the bush or whatever, right? Like, woo, Canada. Anyways, but, like, do kids do that nowadays? Do they sneak out at night to get in trouble?
I don't know.
I think more kids should do that, honestly. I support.
Small acts of rebellion. Like, don't do anything stupid. Don't, like, drive drunk or try to do, like, don't get yourself in trouble. But like, you know, I did little small acts of rebellion, even though my parents are really religious. Like I told you, we used to go to the teen clubs. So go to the teen clubs dressed up in all my body glitter and grind on random strangers. But listen, we did the whole thing I used to do the whole thing with my friends where like you say, I'm sleeping over that person's house and they say they're sleeping over your house.
Oh my God. I did that with my friend once. And then my dad literally like drove past as I was like on my way to a party one time. So it was like definitely a low moment for me. Definitely like one of the most embarrassing moments. Like me and my friend lied for each other. And then I was like walking to this party. My dad fucking drives by and he's like, was that Lilith? And he picks me up. Oh man, I was toast. It was fun.
Small acts of rebellion against like overbearing parents, and understand if they are overbearing, it's a them issue, right? So like small acts to get yourself some social experience is worth doing. So much of like why, and I feel bad even having this conversation because when you talk about like what's quote unquote wrong with femcels, a lot of times it's their parents. Right? Like, and it's out of your control. So basically we're trying to teach people who are starting behind the 8 ball as far as like their social skills, their grooming, their ability to find their tribe and like what to do in an environment where you don't have a lot of control, and then how to start to exert control so that when you do become an adult, you have the freedom to make these other choices that can vastly improve your quality of life, and you know how to.
Yes, you should rebel against your overbearing parents. I know for a lot of people that is like scary and it's intimidating, especially if your parents are like abusive. That can be very, very, very tough. A piece of advice I've been wanting to share that's like kind of related to this, might be shoehorning a little bit, but I'm going to be bringing it up in the future, in a future episode, which is like one of the lessons I've learned from my abusers is to never back down. And in fact, like if someone's giving you a hard time for something, don't acquiesce. You should double down. This is something that I feel like, you know, I don't think it's inherently abusive, but it is something that abusers do tend to do, which is like, you know, if they don't like something that you're doing, they'll like punish you for it essentially by, or, you know, if you voice like discontent to the abuser, they'll like be extra harsh on you to like make you think twice about bringing it up with them again. Like as soon as I learned as a kid that like I could make it costly for my parents to punish me, that was like a game for me. That was like learning independence. That was like how I learned independence basically. So like my parents, for example, they're narcissists. They care a lot about public image. And so one of the ways that I got my parents to like stop oppressing me so much is basically by like threatening to like expose them and like doing like little acts of like public humiliation. Like if my grandma tried to take me to church, I'd like scream and like cry and like really humiliate them. My grandma tried to beat me and I would just scream harder. Okay. Like, and that would humiliate them. I'd be like, my grandma's abusive. She's beating me. And like, again, public humiliation, like that would discourage them from doing that more. Right. So, you know, if your parents are oppressing you, like find out what's important to your parents, whether it's like their public image or like whatever, and threaten them with that. And I think that's my message to kids out there. Play power moves on your kids or your parents.
And honestly, like, and for the kids that like, that's really, really dangerous and they can't do that because there's like actually real risk involved, then it's important to recognize that you're in that kind of environment and to prepare yourself for the reality that you should, as soon as possible, move away.
Yeah, like if you think your parents might kill you for disobeying you, like if you live in a family where like honor killing is a possibility, then yeah, okay.
Yeah. My parents are dysfunctional as fuck and they've called the police on me because I didn't go to church. So
my mom also called the police on me.
I had to talk to a police officer about why I wouldn't go to church. Yes.
About why you didn't go to church. I'm actually surprised the police officer actually came out. If that was the UK, they would just say that's a civil matter and just hang up. Like legit.
No, they would come and they would talk to me and be like, well, I don't know. I feel like the cops themselves were like semi-rolling their eyes at my parents when they came. And my parents were separated by the time. So like they each called the cops on me separately for not going to church, which was like the wildest shit.
The police here wouldn't even come out though. Like that's not a crime. Like no crime's been committed by not going. That's so, America's just weird. Like I cannot imagine calling a police officer for somebody not going to church and them coming out.
My mom also called the police on me, but it was when I had snuck out to go to a party, and actually it was like to see my boyfriend at the time. My mom like locked me out. She like changed the locks while I was gone so that I couldn't get back in. So I tried sneaking out like in through my bedroom window. And then she called the police saying like, oh, someone's trying to break into my house. And so the police come like thinking this is like a break and enter. And they find it's just the teenage daughter. And my mom refused to let me back in as like a weird power move. And they were just like, ma'am, it's illegal to like abandon your minor daughter. Do we need to call child protection services or something like that, right? So find out if your parents are really oppressing you, like find out their weak points. If your parents are mentally unstable, like use that against them actually. The mental instability can make them seem crazy to other people, especially other authority figures. Like, you know, the counselors at the school, for example, had my parents figured out. You know, like, I know it can be really scary if your parents are mentally unstable. You know, it can make their behavior more erratic and more scary and potentially more violent. But also understand that that's a weakness in its own way.
It's either that or basically gray rock your entire high school experience and just prep for the idea that like you're going to be miserable for that entire 4 years until you have the ability to move away from your parents and the environment you're in. Especially if your parents are embarrassing, right? Like if you have a parent that's got a problem of some sort, that can also be a social liability.
Yeah. And you're getting teased for it.
Yeah. That can also be a social liability. Like I'm a big proponent of moving away from wherever you grew up if there's like trauma involved there. Cause I think just the perspective of moving somewhere else will help you to heal as well as like realize like you're not limited by the circumstances you grew up in. If your parents are suffering from, I mean, I've had relatives that like had like very public episodes. It's embarrassing, right? And like it's one of those things where I was like, okay, I could stay here and suffer the embarrassment of like having family issues, or I could just move somewhere else and kind of wash my hands of it and be judged solely by myself, right? Rather than like how the community perceives my family because of certain members. So I'm still team move the fuck away and go find a place that's better suited for your self-esteem. Okay. So the last two issues are more social issues when it comes to dealing with friendships and then dealing with relationships, meaning some women are consider themselves femcels because of how other people have treated them. And they've internalized the treatment of other people as like a statement in who they are. For example, one of the femcels in the Atlantic article mentioned like poor treatment by guys of like them just trying to be nice to them to have sex and then like never wanting to like be publicly their girlfriend, never want to publicly claim them, etc. To be clear, like a lot of that stuff that femcels think is unique to them is actually not unique to them.
Yeah, even average and attractive women experience men who are scrotes like that.
Who are absolute shitbags. So sometimes I feel like what the femcels take that to mean that they're ugly and unattractive, and they internalize the behavior from men and don't understand that like that's just shitty behavior that happens to men, and it would still happen to you if you were average to attractive.
Yeah. And this is why I always say that if you think you are, you know, not conventionally attractive, then your standards, they should be absolutely sky high. You know, forget what society tells you that you have to settle, that you have to, you know, find your level, be grateful for the scraps. That's nonsense. Because ultimately these men, they prey on women who have low self-esteem and who are not conventionally attractive because they think they'll be low hanging fruit. So actually, if you deem yourself a femcel or if you don't think you're conventionally attractive, yeah, your standards, they also need to be sky high as well.
They'll be too low and you'll start to reinforce the poor treatment and then internalize people's behavior because it's like blood in the water. Like the sharks will find you repeatedly.
And this is why I get so annoyed at society when they just basically tell women who think they're unattractive or they're not conventionally attractive, oh, just lower your standards, because actually that's not going to help them. And ultimately, it's essentially not going to protect them from the shitbags in the male sex because they also treat attractive women like shit as well. I mean, so not having any standards or boundaries is the worst thing you can do. And that basically goes if you're attractive or not, or conventionally attractive or not. So yeah, that's what I'd always say. If you believe that you are conventionally not attractive, that's all the more reason to have sky high standards and boundaries.
Yeah, don't make the mistake of being like, oh, I'm ugly, therefore I should accept like poor treatment from men. Because yeah, that just creates a endless negative feedback loop that just reinforces the idea that you're, you know, it's acceptable to be treated badly by men, or that it's something that you have to put up with, which you don't.
And you also don't have to date men you don't find attractive either. That's another thing as well. You are also allowed to have your own physical standards for men.
And don't internalize. The other thing I saw, especially on the TikTok meme about girls who were late bloomers and who never got asked out in high school, et cetera. Like, once again, that has to do with men, and that's not behavior you should internalize. Like, I'm undesirable because no one like asked me out in high school. Like, there could be a million other reasons that's the case. That's not just like you're ugly. It could just be like, once again, like the particular social scene of where you are. A lot of guys who might have liked you may have never like made a move. And a lot of the girls who are like popular just put out a lot, right? It's not even like a secret, and it's not like a particular skill. Sometimes like women look at women who just like sleep around and then think like, oh, well, that person's more liked and like guys like her more. But like literally in high school, like if you're just putting out, like you can just get a lot of attention from men. That's just the reality. Does that sound horrible? But it doesn't necessarily mean that person's prettier than you. I wouldn't recommend it, right? Because there's a lot of women who are on the other side of that who like, I had sex with a lot of guys because I wanted attention from men and I wanted to be part of a social scene, and then they have to deal with that trauma, right? So you have to like remember that, like take a step back and like realize that like your boundaries are actually important for your own mental health and self-esteem, and like trying to quote keep up with the Joneses as far as like just doing whatever you can to get attention from guys, just so you won't be like a quote late bloomer, that you're not left out of the social scene, like comes with its own risks and its own like kinds of trauma.
Yeah, don't expose yourself to unnecessary trauma.
Yeah, don't internalize if you're not always getting like asked out. Don't think there's necessarily something wrong with you, because it may not be at all. It might, like I said, it could just be that social scene. And don't feel like, oh, everyone else is like having sex, and then like I feel like I have to have sex to get a guy to be interested in me.
Also, keep in mind, real life is not like TV. It's like real life isn't like Euphoria, where like, you know, a girl is walking down the aisle in high school and every single person like turns their head to look at her kind of thing. Right, as she walks in slow motion and like the wind is blowing at her hair. Like, I feel like some femcels go through life like thinking that real life is like that, and thinking like, oh, like the pretty girls have it so great. They walk down the hall and there's like, you know, their hair is so perfect and effortless.
You never know what they're going through or what they're doing to like maintain being popular. That's the thing.
Also, quite frankly, no one cares. Like, people in high school, like, the hot girls would walk down the aisle and, like, yeah, maybe some people would look, but no, it's not like every head is turning to look at them, right? Like, you know, just, I don't know. You know, just because your life isn't like what you see, how you see teenagers in TV, you know, doesn't mean you're, like, a femcel or that your life is somehow, like, not worth living or inadequate.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the tough part. Like, Hollywood really does a number on people because it sets up these expectations and these hierarchies that are not necessarily true to life. Be the main character in your own story. The other side of that is like female relational aggression. So don't internalize it if you have a shitty friend group. If they try to make you the quote duff, which is the designated ugly fat friend, if you've ever heard of that acronym. Some women are kind of like, they have poor self-esteem, so they go out of their way to like go with women they think aren't like sexual threats. And so they'll purposely do things to kind of undermine your self-esteem. And even if you are like as attractive as them, they'll just keep doing that and try to make you feel unattractive because they have poor self-esteem. So a lot of women who I feel like are femcels or have low self-esteem, they actually just have shitty friends. Friends that don't like make you feel good about yourself, but friends that go out of their way to make you feel bad about yourself, so that you think like, we're going out and I'm not getting attention, or I'm not like one of the more popular girls, but it's really because of like your low self-esteem is being broadcasted because your friend is constantly treating you like shit. In which case, once again, that comes down to recognizing a social situation that's going to be happy and good for you, and then moving on from that kind of friendship, because that kind of friendship is toxic and will make you feel like a femcel.
Yeah, I think that is an often understated and isn't even necessarily about your looks again as well, why they target you. Some women also, you know, I like to call it befriending downwards as well. If they just perceive any aspect of your life to be beneath them, and that can be in terms of career, that can be in terms of your background. It's not necessarily, again, the way you look. And the common theme I find with femcels is that they tend to attribute everything about the way they're treated to just the way they look. And it's often a lot deeper than that, and in a lot of cases sometimes it's just nothing to do with them. There's also shitty people as well, and yeah, friends can be a huge part of that. And you see that the most, like, if you've ever seen a woman who has lost a substantial amount of weight, myself included, even the way your friends treat you is really, really different, or your so-called friends treat you is really different. Like, they start actually seeing you as almost like a sexual threat. I remember I was out, like, going out with a friend after I'd lost quite a bit of weight, and this guy, he was really rude, to be fair, But he literally pushed one of my old friends out of the way to come up to me and actually say, oh my gosh, you are so gorgeous. And I was a bit like, can you fuck off? And I walked away. But then afterwards, my friend said something, which I thought was a bit of a backhanded comment. And she was like, oh, well, you know, what did she say? I think it was something like, it's only because I didn't make an effort that he didn't say it to me as well. And I was a bit like, okay. So yeah, do watch out for that as well.
Yes. So that's the show. Let us know what you think on our website in the weekly thread on thefemaledatingstrategy.com. If you're a femcel, did you find any of this advice helpful? Do you think any of these things are actionable? And just let us know. Like, let us know your experience with feeling like, you know, you're unattractive and how that affects your dating life as well as your overall quality of life.
Yeah.
So check us out there. As always, you can check out our bonus content on Patreon, patreon.com/the female dating strategy, as well as follow us on Twitter @femdeathstrat and our Instagram @_the female dating strategy. Thanks for listening, queens. And for all you incels out there, fix your struggle beards. Die mad.